Recording. Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Teskey, and today I'm joined by Jack Nichol, who is the owner of Cannatrim in Saint Albans and the co-owner and VP of distribution for Ojorojo Cannabis. Jack, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, good afternoon. It's noon.
Yeah, well, this is morning for me. So,
Oh, fair.
would you mind? I like to start all the new guests off with a 5-minute life story and tell us a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a Flatlander. I'm not from Vermont originally. I'm from outside Philadelphia is where I grew up. Was in the military for a little while and then ended up coming to Vermont in 2009 to do what I did for a while, which was build and fix planes and helicopters. But just kind of wasn't feeling that kind of work anymore. It's pretty rough on the body, especially the electrical side like I was doing. It's get backaches and you're stuffed into a cockpit for, shifts at a time, upside down, either head shoved behind a cockpit, instrument panel and stuff. So I went back to school and got my electrical engineering degree at Vermont Tech, and was an applications engineer for, about 5 years after that. And right about that time, and I think it was like 2019, obviously hemp was already taken its, it already started here in Vermont, was going, 2018 was kind of the height, was kind of the peak of hemp pricing wise. But I got into it in 2019, right on the downside of it. And then, I decided, hey, listen, I was at a crossroads, left my engineering, kind of easy engineering job, and took a risk and said, yeah, let's try cannabis. I saw an opportunity. Nobody was doing the trimming side of it because, it's like with the hemp program, which as awesome as it is here in Vermont, and it still is, it's still great. You can grow as much hemp as you want pretty cheaply. And it's a lot easier to grow cannabis than it is to process it and harvest it. That's the hard part. It's kind of the takes the most labor, the most time, the most expensive part of it, I guess. And nobody was really kind of tackling that aspect of it. So I looked at it from an engineering, side and said, how do we do this? We can do it with machines. And I invested in some trimming equipment, trailer for my pickup truck. And that's what I did in 2019. As I just like harvest season, just like went to 12 or 13 farms and just trimmed cannabis all of harvest. And then kind of went from there. Yeah, that's how I got into cannabis.
Now, are you using like the electric rollers and those kind of things?
Yeah, for wet, those are the machines. Typically right at harvest we use the wet machines. But we also there's other they're tumblers. There's different. Yeah, right. The physics are different between how you trim wet and how you trim dry. But that style of machine, a rolling tube with a serrated plane, vacuum, and then inclination in gravity, it just comes out the other side trimmed into a bucket.
Now, from what I understand, those machines are not super cheap.
No, they're not. Yeah, and that's another reason why I thought it was a good idea to be the guy who had the equipment and was just like, I already invested in it, business, my business already invested in this equipment. You can just rent it and I'll come and help, you know what I mean, the first year. So I just ran the equipment my first year, and that's kind of how we did it. But along the way, like nobody else in the area was really doing this. I think there's still one other operation that's still doing rental for and harvest help, Alex, and he's even though we both do the same thing and we're quote unquote competitors, we like send each other leads and like help each other out if we can't, you know what I mean?
Well, imagine that. Yeah,
pretty friendly. Yeah, it's pretty friendly. We like each other. So there really wasn't anyone else doing it. So I went to the OEMs, the guys that were making it, and I was like, hey, listen, if you want me to, I talk to growers every day, and I'm on site at their farms talking to them anyway. If they want to buy it, do you want me to sell it for you too? Since I know how to fix it and use it and can give them tips and stuff. So that's how I started picking up manufacturers. So I think I have 8 or 9 now that I sell. Buckers, flower strippers, that kind of stuff. trimmers, dry, wet, tabletop stuff for the craft grower. The guy just doing it at home who's got like a 4x4 tent. They try to price those now for those guys. But yeah, it was expensive. Those machines are expensive. That's why people are interested in to this day in the rental side of it.
Now you said you also do like a little bit of like fix maintenance on their machine. I assume that your time in the military fixing planes has probably given you some relevant experience with that.
I know, it's weird. Yeah. I've thought about that before too. And it's just this weird, super weird path that I've taken in life. You know what I mean? Like college dropout out of high school. I went to college for a couple of weeks, dropped out, joined the Marines, fixed helicopters.
Oh, so you went to college first. You tried college first and left.
Yeah.
Why?
I tried college a couple of times.
Why'd you leave?
I don't know. I just felt like, what I was in my hometown. I didn't leave my hometown. That's why I left.
Okay.
Yeah, the college it was like high school again. It was just like the next level of high school. You know what I mean? It was like everybody had left. All my buddies left. They went to the big city. They went to Philly, or they went out of state. And I was just in this, it was a good school. It was, Westchester is a good university, but it just was like right next to my town that I graduated high school. So I didn't really feel like I left,
Sure.
I did the next best thing and joined the military.
Yeah. So maybe I'd love to hear more about your experience in the military and things. Yeah. Talk about that if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I joined in 2000. So it was before 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I remember being in the recruiter's office, and I was, there's a whole contract and paperwork you have to do, obviously, when you sign your life away for 4 to 5 years. And one of those initial lines is, you could be put into a combat situation, and expected to perform. Like, are you okay with that? And you got to initial next to that you're going to do it.
I've seen that paperwork. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I started chuckling, like, whatever. I think is the last conflict that I thought was big in my mind. My naive mind was Desert Storm, like the early 90s. You know what I mean? Like, that's never going to happen. So
wow.
Yeah, I went to yeah, it was just like, I'm just going to do a nice little easy little 4 years or 5 years, whatever I signed up, 5 years that I signed up for, and get my college money and run, and go back to school and figure out, because by then I'll have figured out what I want to do with my life. But I ended up joining at a really busy time.
You sure did, yeah, boy.
Yeah. So I spent most of my enlistment overseas in Iraq.
And what were you doing over there? Fixing planes?
Yeah, I fixed helicopters. Yeah, fix helicopters. So when you're in the military, they give you a specific platform that you're responsible for, and mine was the CH-46 Echo. It's the one that is like the little brother of the Chinook. It's got like two big rotors on top that spin. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Good for cargo and casualty evacuation. That's what our primary mission was. And yeah, so that's what I did. I fixed those helicopters when I was in the Marines.
Now, how long were you overseas for?
I was there before the war in 2003 for a couple months, and then like 7 months after it ended, because of that, when we invaded Iraq, the first, in 2003, the war was only like 2 or 3 weeks. It wasn't very long. We all thought we were gonna be going home pretty soon, but we ended up staying in like another 7 months. So yeah, it was like 9 months the first time, and then my second time we were stationed right outside Fallujah. That was 7 months, and then I went back as a civilian for another year.
What were you doing as a civilian?
I worked for the Army, so when you pick up skills doing electronics and electrical stuff, they translate to other things really well, because you can fix a helicopter pretty well. You can fix other things pretty well too.
Sure.
They all have wires and names and
yeah,
things you gotta, you know what I mean? It's all those different things. So for them, I fixed these cool cameras that were made down in Florida called gyroscope, I forget, but they were on the back of these MRAP vehicles that cleared routes. The big problem in Iraq was the IEDs. Remember, I don't know if you remember hearing about that, the roadside bombs that always explode.
Yeah, absolutely.
They devised these trucks with the chassis, with the V-shaped chassis on the bottom. So when things blew up underneath, they would be actually deflected away. And stuff.
Right, yeah.
And then they put a lot of electronics on it. One of those electronics packages on these trucks that would clear routes before they would send convoys through. That's what they call them, route clearance vehicles. So if you're in like Baghdad and you need to get to like, Balad, that base, you would send the route clearance vehicles first to make sure there's no bombs. Once they were like, all right, we made it through, or we disarmed everything, then they would send the convoy through before they, the bad guys had a chance to put more bombs down on the road.
And that was your living environment sort of for a number of years.
Yeah, the desert. Yeah, sure.
That must be stressful.
It is. It was really stressful. But I guess you get used to it, and then I'd come home, and that's what I did. That's what I did in Iraq. Yeah, fixed helicopters.
How was it when you came home? I know a lot of veterans have said it's tough to readjust when you come back from that type of environment.
I don't know. Yeah, it was. I mean, like, I think everybody brings home their own version of whatever they experienced with them, and I certainly brought home my own version of hell there, and so yeah, it was okay. It wasn't debilitating, you know what I mean, per se. Like, I'm a disabled veteran. I do have PTSD, and went through the whole trying to get medicated through my doctor, obviously, pills through getting therapy and through your doctor, but that not really having an effect, and finding out that cannabis was really the best thing that worked for me. So my business really started to reflect, I guess, a passion. I don't know. And that's, kind of how that happened for me. So
you are a cannabis user.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a cannabis
now,
user.
You talked about PTSD and you're using cannabis. In what ways would you say the cannabis has helped you treat your symptoms of PTSD?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that I was actually thinking about that today. Like, I remember smoking when I was, growing up outside of Philadelphia as a 15-year-old. And the feeling, of getting quote unquote high is much different than as a, almost 40-year-old man who does it for his, to treat a medical condition. Whereas I use it now to just feel normal, right? So it's not a usage for calmness and to release, like, I guess people liken it if you're gonna have a cocktail or a beer or something at the end of the day. But for me, is cannabis, THC, to be specific, right? Because really specific about the medicine, it just works best for me to just feel just stable and normal and ready to tackle my day, really.
And what's your preferred method of intake?
I guess I'm a flower guy. I'm old school. Yeah.
Me too.
I used to be, and if there's any young people that ever watch this, a smoker, cigarette smoker for like 10 years, pack a day. So I don't smoke anymore. I quit about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. And the smoking flower is my kind of release in that respect. I get the smoke part of it, but it's also predictable for me. I feel like smoking flower is pretty predictable. I feel like concentrates get a little bit strong, and I can't edible scare me, to be perfectly honest with you. I can't. I don't know. You can't do it. So yeah, flower is nice and easy. It's like driving a sedan. You know what I mean? You know what to expect.
Yeah. It's like driving. I like that. It's like driving a sedan. All right, cool. Now, I wanted to talk to you about, are there any other veteran-owned businesses in Vermont that are getting into the cannabis game?
Yeah, well, the CEO of Extract here in Saint Albans is an Army vet.
Oh, Trevor. Cool. I've heard about him.
Good guy. And I don't think he owns Extract, but he's the CEO there.
Okay.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head if there are any other veteran-owned businesses that are cannabis.
I put you on the spot here.
I can't, yeah. And if there's anybody that I should be putting, you know what I mean? I'm sorry.
If I hear of anybody, I'll for sure send them your way.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do you think veterans have a place in the social equity piece of this bill?
That's a good question. So if there was like a veteran that wanted to be a grower that's suffering from some sort of physical or mental condition that cannabis can
I'm
help
not
with.
even saying if they're suffering. I'm just saying if you served your country, maybe and maybe you
Just get
haven't got
preferential.
your health care benefits taken
Yeah.
care of. Or
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Right. That'd be great. Uh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that would be a really cool benefit to have as a veteran. Sure.
cool. I thought
Yeah,
you'd
I'd
be
love.
more prepared for that question. I think I caught you off guard a bit.
Yeah, really, because I'm just, you know what it is. I'm just used to like, I don't know. I guess I'm just used to like having to like in the cannabis industry, you have to like every scrap of what you take. It's not easy. You got to fight for it. You know what I mean? There's not really a lot given to you.
Yeah,
There's a
right.
lot of stacked up against you every day, to be perfectly honest with you. So when like, yeah, when there's benefits that all of a sudden start coming your way, you're like, oh my gosh, you're actually going to help me. That's crazy. You're just you're not used to that. You're more, yeah. There's a lot more obstacles in my path, and then I feel like people have reached out to help. That's for sure.
And
We help
and
each
you,
other. Those in the business help each other. Not getting help, not in a social welfare aspect.
it
Not
sure
not from the
seems
government.
like that. It seems like we've got a lot of super generous, kind people
Yeah.
in the industry here in Vermont, which has been really encouraging for me personally to see. Um,
Yeah,
you
that's the
said
only
though,
way.
I saw you you had a quote. You said I should have opened a deli. What did you mean by that?
um yeah, so in 2019, and there really wasn't a lot of people doing the trimming thing, and there still really aren't. There it's not an easy thing to do. It's an expensive kind of thing to get into if you want to do rentals, because you have to invest in equipment, which isn't cheap. um and no one had done it before. A lot in the cannabis industry in general, there's just like kind of mostly uncharted territory no matter what you're doing. Where I feel like that silly joke I tell is like, and no disrespect to, opening a deli,
Yeah,
super
right.
honest, great humble work, you know what I mean? Fantastic. My dad pretty much, might own a restaurants, right? So it's like same thing, but um, it's been done. You have resources to help you because it's been done so many times before. You can reach out to other guys who have opened up delis and been like, hey, listen, does this work? Does this not work? Or, should I do it this way? Should I not do it this way? Or even like go into their delis and scope out their stuff to see if how they're doing it's working. There's just nobody around, nobody for you to really call. So you're just kind of on your own, hoping that what you're doing is the right thing, and I still kind of feel that way to this day, to be perfectly honest
No,
with
that's a
you.
great point. There's really not a
Yeah.
lot of precedent, and I see that in some of the. I don't know how closely you followed the control board meetings.
Yeah,
Um,
as much as I can, but
yeah, but even some of like I see them trying to figure out this insurance piece, and at first they say, "Oh, you need $1 million of liability," and then it says, "Oh, commercially viable or reasonable amount of
yeah,
insurance," because it seems
yeah,
like they also don't really know
they've
how
been
to
great.
deal with a lot of
Yeah,
these things.
they've been asked to do a whole program, put together a program really quickly based on other states. And they had like, I don't think they had like 2 or 3 consultant groups right before they threw everything to the legislature. But they kind of have a hot potato, and they've been changing it as best they can, as fast as they can. You know what I mean? So I know I complain too sometimes about the license rollout, and I'm sure they would like it to be faster too. So nothing against them,
Now,
but they've.
if you're going to run a company where you're doing trimming services, do you guys? I don't believe there's any regulations for those type of companies, is there?
No, there's not. I thought they were going to actually have something, but they don't consider just trimming on its own to be a licensed activity, or an activity needing a license, I should say. Now that I said that, if someone watches this, they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, we should
I
get that
know.
guy.
I hate to give them ideas.
Yeah, we should. That guy's not paying for a license. We should get him." Yeah,
I was going to say
yeah,
the same thing about growing seeds, but like I don't want to put,
yeah. You want to put a bug in there, but
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but
So far, no, they don't.
it does seem interesting that every other aspect of this industry is so finely controlled, and then they kind of overlooked a couple of spots like that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Nobody looks at trimming. Everyone hates it, right?
It
So
does.
it's
It
like,
sucks. I've done some of it, and I hate it.
yeah,
Yeah, I do. It's like it gets boring, and there's
yeah,
I just can't work at a repetitive job for that long. Although it needs to be done, and I certainly understand that.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, boy, you sent me some of these articles to read, and I see one here from the St. Albans Messenger where you're standing in front of your Cannatrim banner wearing a tall truck hoodie.
Yep.
Uh, do you know Devin? Are you guys tight?
No, I'm like a fan mostly. I'd love to work with him, obviously, because I respect, the cannabis that they grow. I love the brand. In the Ojorojo capacity, we'd love to work with people like him that have established brands and need someone that can do packaging, labeling, and distribution in mass. Those are the obviously kind of customers we look for. So yeah, I'm a fanboy and also guy trying to, I'm also trying to court him, right? So
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm about to go to his house after this for a meet and skeet shoot barbecue.
Yeah.
So maybe we can get
so
you.
That sounds like a fun. Yeah, that sounds like a fun event.
I know, and I'm glad I asked for Saturdays off all summer because that really, I missed a lot of stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh boy, I want to talk to you a little bit about what was going on up in Swanton because I watched those. Apparently, so you petitioned for retail sales in St. Albans as well.
St. Albans first. Yeah, because I'm a St. Albans resident. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about your efforts for petitioning in St. Albans first.
Yeah. So that was tough, and it was an uphill battle. I learned a lot, and really that boiled down to not the 2022 town meeting day ballot, but the 2021 one was when that was in January, like that. And the ballot or the vote was like either at the end of January or at the beginning of February 2021. I was like, I reached out to the town board and was like, hey, listen, can you put the question or pose it to the voters? What do you feel like about having a legal retail dispensary here in the town? And it's a bit late in the cycle to be asking for that kind of that kind of addition to the it was a little bit too late. So in order for me to get a special vote for them to basically compel the town or compel the city, because we're two different entities, right? You live in the city and the town, even though we're all neighbors, right? I had two different petitions going on at the same time, and I needed X amount. I think it was 5% from the town, 5% from the city had to sign up, and you had to be registered voters already. And once I collected those, then I was able to hand those in and compel either one to have a vote on this specific topic. But I did that during like the pandemic, not a lot of people walking around, not a lot of people wanting to talk to other people.
Hard to canvass.
Getting signatures, you know what I mean? And cannabis, they're like, who is this guy? No, so it was kind of an uphill battle. So St. Albans was a pipe dream for that year, but the town ended up doing it on its own for this year, and it went through for them. The city continues to ignore it. That's just.
Let me ask you this. I saw some, you quoted, or maybe it wasn't you quoted, but these stories you sent me, maybe you mentioned something that retail cannabis may benefit property values. And that was a study you quoted from Colorado from 2018. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just like, the reason I brought that up to begin with, and that's data, right? That's hard data. You can look that up on the intraweb pretty easily. Is because that people think that it's kind of like a pock mark upon the face of your town to have a dispensary. Crime's going to go up. Property value is going to go down. This place is going to turn into a shithole. Yeah, right. When in reality, it's very much the opposite, where crime goes down, property values go up, because the people that now, I hate to say it, but the gentrification of cannabis is very true, and it's happening in the stores, and those are the kind of stores that are going to be opening up, and those are the kind of customers that buy it now, and getting exposed to it. They're nice stores, and the property value goes up, and everything becomes more valuable. It makes your town nicer. It attracts other businesses. So that's not opinion. That's
well. Let me ask you something, Jack. Do you think with the inflated sort of nature of our current housing market in Vermont, that property values going up is a good thing? And why or why not? Maybe.
Yeah, they seem at odds with each other. That's for sure. I think that I think that people that own their primary homes are going to be way more happy with what happens when a cannabis store opens up in their town and sees their home value goes up. I mean, yeah, they're going to obviously, I don't know if they'll be so worried about reassessed value from the town, maybe next year, the year after, but they'll be happy when they start seeing other houses around them selling at higher prices than, than they bought them for.
Cool. Now, okay, so let's move over to Swanton now. So your efforts in St. Albans did not work. It seems like you tried the neighbors. Talk about a little about your efforts down there in Swanton.
Yeah, Swanton was an idea that kind of fell into my lap, so to speak. I was looking at a building to open my facility for Ojorojo in. We have a lot of machinery, but that particular building didn't work out for what we were going to do. But I suggested to the owners, hey, listen, you guys should post on some sort of online realtor site that you're friendly, you're cannabis business friendly, because obviously they had me there to talk to me. And then we talked for a couple more minutes, and they floated the idea to me, if if Swanton Village voted yes, if we were able to get it on a ballot and they voted yes, would I be interested in then taking the space under that focus, not for the processing, the packaging and labeling. So it was a long shot that we had to the village had to speak, and it spoke 2 times and it said no twice. So I respect it and have decided to move on. So that's legally we can't open a dispensary if the village doesn't let us.
Now I watched the meetings as much as I could. They're very poorly recorded. The audio and video quality is absolute garbage up there, which I thought was unfortunate, because I really wanted to hear what they were saying, and some of it was just so bad quality I couldn't even hear what they were saying. But I did notice some people from Department of Health, or a community coalition at least, in the back spouting some statistics off. And if you were the guy I think you were, which is hard to tell because the video quality is so bad, it seemed like you were very well composed. And what are your impressions when you hear people still rattling off these same statistics we've been hearing for decades now?
It's I don't like using hyperbole a lot, just because I feel like we get it through media every day. But the kind of the conservative, meaning the fear mongering of just that one, the conservative view of, I'm not saying conservatives as a whole, but the conservative view of cannabis, the plant, and its uses and what its intentions are for, I feel like are still kind of being used as a weapon in places around here, obviously. And it's just, I don't think it's fair, because it's not true. And I think it's kind of a straw man argument, because we're not opening the intention was never to open a store for anyone and everyone to come in and be able to purchase cannabis at their whim. It's a regulated substance that you have to be 21 years old and verify and get your, your credentials verified before you're even allowed to walk through the door. It's a regulated substance before you're allowed to purchase. So there's a very active process to negate the fear that they're, that they're trying to, I don't want to use or preach, but they're trying to say at these meetings.
Well, I heard another one of my friends who'd like to remain nameless was in the room, and I could hear some of his comments, and he sounded frustrated. And I mean, I've certainly met some of these people myself, and I'm always trying to bring people around to the light, and sometimes it just seems impossible. It seems like some of these people really are not willing to budge at all on what they believe. And how do you deal with that?
I don't know. I think I just try to be like a nice human being to those people, no matter what. is kind of my goal. Like, even if we disagree, I'll tell you that we disagree, but let's figure out a way to work with each other. As with those same people, we talked after the meeting, and I said, hey, listen, if this goes through, which it didn't, let's work together. Let's figure out a way to do education. I'm totally fine with as a business owner with a legal dispensary, if I was one, having some sort of, helping them do some sort of outreach to youth and the dangers of it, because it can be dangerous if it's abused. Of course, it's a substance, right? So yeah, I don't know if it's the same person who I'm thinking of. I think he's frustrated because he's a local businessman himself, right? And this is kind of the people he's having to market to, with his product, and it's obvious it'd be much nicer to have them a lot more receptive to his product and to what he's doing, the hard work he's putting into his craft, right?
Sure.
When he gets it out to market, to have it the respect that he's looking for and deserves, in my opinion.
Yeah, and now when you've been doing something your whole life and you have people who have never been involved in this sitting there telling you how dangerous it is, I can imagine you might just want to scream about it,
Yeah. I understand. I think their whole entire and I guess I'll just name it since we're talking about it. We don't have to dance around it. I mean, their biggest fear was it getting into the hands of kids,
right?
And that was their angle, and that was their reason why there shouldn't be a legal dispensary in their town, is because what if it gets in the hands of kids? And that's, if you lived in a vacuum, you're absolutely right, because then it's not regulated once it leaves the door. Because what if an older brother who's 22 gives it to his, wants to be the cooler brother, gives it to his younger brother who's 14, and then he gives it to his friends and so on and so forth. But the problem with that, super scary scenario is that's already happened, right? So it's like,
that is the problem,
right? So the vacuum, that argument that you're trying to scare other people and these voters with, is that it's already happening anyway. And then having a source where it has to be, the stuff is grown legally, it's tracked, it's tested, there's documentation following it all the way to the consumer, out the door with you in your sealed bag, child resistant bag, right? So it's a much different experience, and I don't know, process to get legal cannabis than the I don't know, the 80s sitcom buying it from a guy in an alley, in a dark alley.
So isn't that actually creating a scenario where we're bringing at least safe cannabis to the kids who are choosing to use it?
I mean, yeah, I don't want to say that, I think that we need to promote people that are not 21 using it. Like, I'll never say that.
No,
but,
absolutely.
I will say that if it did fall into the hands of somebody who was underage, yeah, you know what? That stuff went through an entire lab that tested for heavy metals, toxins, molds, all different types of stuff before it even was able to be put into a pre-roll or put into a jar and then put into a store.
Now, let me ask you this. We got 4 minutes. I'm hoping we can chop this and do another chunk. But do you think that same line of reasoning might apply to other types of drugs?
Yeah, that same line of, like, I'm starting to, as I'm looking at I don't know if it's holistic, but looking at what is it, psilocybin as a microdose, as a method to treat PTSD, as a way to treat.
And dude, I've heard, if you haven't tried it,
I've heard of other vets, they've had a lot of success with it as well. So yes, I guess, yeah, when it comes to that, yeah, I would support that.
Well,
I'm just like way more well versed with cannabis, you know what I mean? So
sure.
For me to be like, oh yeah, let's trying mushrooms on a microdose thing. I haven't done a lot of research, or rather just from the anecdotal stuff I see.
Sure. Okay, cool. Well, let's chop it here. I'm going to render this down. We'll come right back for another chunk.
Cool.
Great. Thanks for joining me,